Okay, here we are. I've taken a trip to the old, as you can see, Sherwood Academy site. Or when I came here, it was Gedling Comprehensive, or the Gedling School, as they called it back then. So I've just come for a visit on the site because, as we all know who went here, it was demolished probably, I guess, getting on to 3 years ago now, maybe just over 3 years. There's one of the buses going by. This is the main entrance, looking outwards, and the main entrance is now someone's parking spot. But if we turn around and look, what we can just about make out is that's the route down to the reception there, and then over to the right here we've got the old school dining hall, or kitchen and dining room, and then the ceramics room, art and design, all that kind of stuff down there, music room, and then we sort of move across and we can see what it looks like now. So we can only just make out really how it might have been back then. It's I've taken a walk around the site just before filming this because I wanted to just check around and see if you can still get around, and it's quite remarkable. I mean, the site is being reclaimed by nature quite well. You can see over here, like all this grass would have been short, of course, when it was school. You know, this all would have been, it was just bare concrete. But now look at them, buildings, of course. But now look at it. So I wanted to visit because, well, a bit of background. So I went to primary junior school and then came to Gedling Comp. So I came here in 1989 and left in 94. So I had pretty good time here. I know that school isn't necessarily for everybody, but I enjoyed it. I made a lot of very good friends, and for life, that I'm still best of friends with now. And we had a great time here. So it feels like a valuable piece of history. It's a valuable piece of my history, because I've got positive associations with the place. But it's also a valuable piece of history locally. It's a piece of local significance. There's many generations of children from Gedling and maybe a bit further away who would have been educated here and spent 5 years of their life, or maybe 6 years if they did the sixth form, on these grounds. So when I found out that this place was going to be demolished, it's probably getting on for maybe 7 years ago. So it's the 22nd of June today, 2022. So about 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, maybe 2015. I knew the school was in decline. I knew it wasn't doing too well, and then I heard that bits of it were being shut down and knew that no new intakes were being accepted. So the writing seemed to be on the wall from that point. And from being open, I can't remember exactly. I think it was opened in the early 50s, but I might be wrong on that one. So it made it for, what would that be? 70 years, 70-ish years, maybe a bit less. My maths isn't absolutely spot on. I got a D in GCSE, which was, expected. But there you go. So yeah, anyway, it's a valuable bit of local history. And when it came to being demolished, I did email the inquiry address here at the school just to say, I hear that things are shutting down, and it'd be great to drop in and just do what I'm doing now. Just drop in and do a walk around and film the place as it was before it closed, just to get it on record, really, a visual reminder of how it looked while it was still, if you like, alive. But I never heard back from that email, which was really disappointing. I mean, I can understand, if there's kids around and they don't want people, ex-pupils in their late 30s filming, I understand that. So fair enough. But then when it came to demolishing, they posted signs on the local, telegraph poles and so on, just to say, we're demolishing this place, any questions, queries or whatever, get in touch with this guy who's the guy in charge of the demolition. So I did. I emailed him and I said it'd be great if, again, I repeated the request just to say if I could come on site and just have a bit of a nose around, even just for half an hour, just to record some of how it still stands before it's gone. That'd be amazing. And unfortunately, the answer was no, because it was classed now as an unsafe site. because of demolition and because it had been left for a while without any maintenance, so it wasn't deemed safe for visitors. I even offered to wear one of those silly luminous tabards and a hard hat, but not even that convinced them, so sort of accepted defeat on that one again. And then, but the guy actually, to be fair to the guy, he did say, I'll send you some photos of how it looks, and while it's going on, in progress, the demolition. I said, well, thank you, that'd be great. And then, coincidentally, so this would have been, I guess, 2018, maybe 2019 actually, but it was there was a coincidence where the day that the demolition started, it started just down there where you're looking now, and the first thing to go was the old sports hall, the main sports hall, not the sort of annex sports hall, which was a separate building, but the main one that was attached to the school. And he sent me photos of just about to just about to destroy this building and then post-destruction. And the coincidence was that it was the same day that I watched the episode of Game of Thrones. And the spoiler alert, it's a long time ago. If you haven't seen it by now, then I don't feel too good to spoil it. But the spoiler alert is that it was the same episode as the one where Daenerys decides to destroy King's Landing on the dragon. She destroys the whole thing. Sets it all on fire. So that was a big deal because Game of Thrones is a big favourite of mine. And then the school was also being demolished on the same day that I saw that on the TV. So the two things kind of combined into something quite powerful, which sounds like the nerdiest thing in the world, but it did. And at that point I thought, well, I don't feel like I'm comfortable to just say, okay, fair enough, let's walk away. So it all got demolished, and it's all gone now, as you can see. There's rubble and stuff everywhere, and concrete sort of foundations where the buildings used to be. But I was always determined to actually get in this place and do a final walk around, just to say goodbye for me, like I say, because it's an important place for me, and just out of curiosity, really, just to see how it looks now. There's nothing here, and just to try and put something on the record for to say, it was here, we were here, kind of thing. It feels important to do that, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be turned into a housing estate, because we can see over there, of course, that there's the old Gedling pit, which was still in operation when we were at school. I think it closed in 92, so it's still going for 3 years while I was here, and now there's all those houses there in this Gedling Country Park. So there's a hell of a lot of change going on around here, and this site will be the next step of that, I would imagine. But while it's empty and doing nothing, here we are. It's not I'm sure, I'm not really supposed to be here, because the site is secured, but there is a way in, and it's down behind the back of the old shops, down on Wollerton Avenue down there. Someone's been in here before, because they've sawn off one of the iron railings, so you can just sort of fit through onto the big old field. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to have a walk around, and this is going to be basically an opportunity for me to just reminisce non-stop. So I appreciate that might be incredibly dull for even people that were here when I was here, but also maybe more so for people that were here before or after me. But it's important. I wanted to say goodbye to the place. So I think we'll go around this way. So we'll sort of retrace the steps down into reception and through upper school, as it was called anyway when I was here. And I'll try and figure out where things used to be, because you might be able to see the landscape has actually changed quite significantly with all the rubble that's been bulldozed. So some places are quite difficult now to work out what was there. If you didn't know what was there, then you maybe wouldn't be able to work it out, and I'm relying on memory that's getting on for 33 years old. But because I enjoyed it here, I feel like my memory is still pretty fresh in terms of what was where. So let's see anyway. So we'll go around this way. So this is to the left of the main entrance. Again, that's the main entrance. We'll walk around this way. And the first thing I noticed, this wasn't here when I was, but there's a plaque here to a lad called Joshua Zygmunt. In fact, Joshua Zygmunt Strumskate. Age 22, I am complete, I am loved. Now, I don't know who that is, but I'm guessing it might have been a former pupil who passed away, and there was something done in his memory. So it's nice that that's been left there, because there's very, very little that's been left. In fact, from what I've seen, it's basically just that, and the sign here. That's the only thing that would tell you that any sort of clue as to what was here before. So we'll go around here anyway. So again, like I say, all these reminiscences, if that's even a word, are going to be from, like I say, 89 to 94, best as I can remember it. So, and the reason I say that is because the first thing I remember is that this fence never used to be here. Now, what I've noticed on the site so far is there's a hell of a lot of fences now. The barriers like this one, but also huge green ones, metal fences similar in style to that gate, and this one over here. And of course, it's because I think school security increased drastically in the years since I was here. So a lot of the things now are sort of fenced off. And we'll see this in a few minutes when we get down to the old sports field right down there. The fence now just basically straddles the entire length of that, so you can't actually now, unless you've got the gate open, you can't actually go from the main grounds here onto the field. So I'm not going to do that, but the lucky thing about that, which I might as well say now, is that I did come here about 2 years ago and snuck in once again and had a look, snuck in from the Arnold Lane side and got in on the field. So I'll use that old video rather than create a new one. And I had a good old wander around there on the old AstroTurf pitch and up the other side. But I had to stop because at the time they hadn't fully completed the demolition, and there was a security guard on site who spotted me, so he wouldn't let me up into this area. So I had to stop filming there, but it's lucky that I did it and that I kept it, because you can't get in from the Arnold Lane side anymore. Believe me, I tried. But I've got the video, so I'll just use that one from a couple of years ago. And it was on a nice sunny day as well, so it might be a bit seamless, who knows. You wouldn't necessarily know it wasn't filmed today. But anyway, let's carry on. So here we've got what looks like quite an arty installation now of a bench that over time has just drooped because of the the rain and so on. So that looked pretty cool. I don't think I'd fancy sitting on it. Still feels pretty solid. But even so, we'll leave that there. So yeah, as we come down here, this is the entrance. So this is the route into the old reception. And what we can see down here is that there's some protection orders on some of the trees, which is great, because these trees all around us, very, very well established. They would have been here when I was here, and before. They were probably planted, I imagine, around the time the school was open. So they're probably a good 70, 60 odd years old. And this barrier along here, that never used to be here. Again, when I was here, you could just walk straight over onto this entire field over here. I guess they wanted to, I don't know, funnel children away from that maybe. And down here, another bench there rotting away. So we get here, look, and you can see all around us that nature is really aggressively reclaiming all this place, as well it should. And that's one thing. It's actually quite difficult to remember, or to see even what used to be where. But the clue to this obviously is the steps. I mean, that's an obvious one. But as we go down the steps, what we'll see, and this is a massive clue to anyone who ever came here, we can see on the floor that there's, I think it's an octagonal shape on the concrete base, and that of course is the old reception. And another way to get into it would have been through this way. We're not going to go all the way through here. We'll go a horseshoe shape around the grounds and loop back on ourselves. But of course this was the other way in, right next to the I guess this would have been the boiler room, wouldn't it? I never went in there, of course, because I wasn't the caretaker. But that's, I think, where all the heating gubbins was. And this little wall here, this is again something that I do remember it, because let me just come along to here where the reception is. So it's grown over now, but when we got our GCSE results, we got them from the reception here. Now, it was only me here that day with a lad that I was friends with, who I went to infants, juniors and secondary with. So that's Phoenix, infants, primary, juniors, and then Gedling. David Meir. And we both just turned up at the same time, and then we got our results, came out here, and I remember vividly we sat on this very spot, on this wall here, and opened our results. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, I got a D in maths, which I was always quite proud of, because I started off in the bottom set, basically because I messed around all the time, and I was determined to get moved up, and I did. And so in the exam they put me in for, the D was the highest mark I could have got. So I was quite happy with that, because I worked hard to try and get it with the ceiling that was in place. But no, I got like 4 C's or above, which is what I needed to get into college. I went to do media studies at South Notts, which is also closed down now. in Clifton. But anyway, we were sat here opening our results. I was happy with what I got because it was enough to get me into the next step, what I wanted to do, going to college, like I said. David Meir opens his results, looks at them for a second and goes, "Oh, what does this mean?" I said, "Oh, what does what mean? What's the confusion?" And he said, "Well, it says A star. Is that good?" I was like, "Yeah, that's good. Of course it's good." It's like, it can't be better. So I don't know what he got an A star in. But, you know, clever guy. So well done to him. I didn't get any A stars, far from it. I got a B in English literature. That was my highest mark. Which is quite something considering that I can't stand Shakespeare even to this day. But there you go. I could pass an exam with reasonable skill, and that's all that counts, really, isn't it, when you're at school? So yeah, let's go this way. So we'll walk in this way. So this is just going into the old reception. So we see the concrete thing here. So the receptionist would have been sat here, you know, this corner over here. And as we went through, and like I say, the landscape has changed quite drastically, because where all the walkways were, or where a lot of them were, it's now had all this rubble sort of moved over it. So it's quite hard to pick your way through exactly where things used to be. But my memory serves me well enough to be able to say that we walked through here, excuse me, and this brings us to this area. Now this was the reception area. Over here there was a few chairs. This is where your parents would sit if they came in to visit because you've been bad or something, or excluded kids would come and sit out here, at least when I was here. But we went up around about here there'd have been a little set of steps. So we go up here, and then there were some offices, and I'm not sure what was up here. I know that the headmaster's office was up here. I think that some of the admin office was up here as well, so, you know, printers and paper supplies and all that stuff. And we can see that there's, you know, the concrete foundations for all of that, and then the bricks to divide the rooms. So we can sort of just about make that out still. And if we walk up here, then we get to this area. So I'm supposing that this may have been the headmaster's office, because it looks like a large, separate area at the end of the corridor. You probably didn't want to find yourself in here, because it would mean that you'd been probably not that well behaved. But there we go. So that's that area. And if we follow this round, so we would have been able to, in the past, we would have been able to walk all over this field, because of course it would have been kept trim. But now we can't, so we walk around here. And this is the pathway that takes us through to upper school. So this would have been on the outside. And we'll just retrace our steps back this way. So there would have been a little set of steps here, took us down into that area over there. But we'll just come over here and we'll try and retrace the steps through the actual school building as it was, and as far as my memory will allow. So there's reception there. So just before we go there, I guess if we go down this way, this is still quite easy to make out, isn't it? So if we go down here, you'll probably remember that this would have taken us down into the assembly hall. Where school discos and assemblies and whatnot happen. So I think, and this would have been connected to the PE block, which is just over there. So this to me looks like it would have been the old stage, that I never actually saw anything performed on at all, except the end of year photo that we all had. But there was never any plays or anything like that when I was here. There was no drama department, I don't think. I don't remember ever seeing drama as an option. But that's what that was. So way back when, I've still got it now, there's a big photo of the entire year that I was part of, with us all standing on here. And then we go down. Obviously it's a sharp drop, because then the stage dropped down into, let's go down here, it would have dropped down into the assembly hall. And this is of course where I'm sure pretty much everyone who came here would have sat their exams. It's where I did. I set all my exams in here, apart from ceramics. You did that obviously in the ceramics room. But yeah, this is the old assembly hall. And I know it's a cliche to say this, and there's a very good reason for it. It all looks way smaller, and that's because now, I'm 6'5" now, so everything looks small to me compared. But of course, back then I wasn't this tall, and everything, you remember everything as looming quite large in your memory, but when you come back and look at it, you think, oh wow, that was all crammed into that small space. And of course it's because you're a lot smaller. You sit on smaller chairs, you sit on small tables, everything's scaled down, of course, which is such an obvious thing to say, but it struck me just as I've walked through here, like I say, before I started filming, that everything feels much smaller than it was, because I'm having to remember it, and also because I'm a lot bigger. But anyway, so this is the old school hall. I'm probably just walking through the actual space where I sat an exam, and hundreds of others of us did as well, which is quite wild really when you think about it. There's all this history here, and it's you wouldn't know it to look at it now. It's it's a bit of a wasteland. So let's head back up here. Let's retrace the steps. So we'll try and go. It looks like the building ends here. So if we head up this way, this is exactly where the steps would have been. So we'll walk up the rubble and imagine that we're walking up the steps. So we get back up to here. So we've got the stage to our left. So we'll walk back up to where I think the walkway would have been, leading away from reception, which I think was here. So this is where all the weeds are growing now. So this is the upper school, as I remember it. So this was a ground floor, first floor sort of arrangement, and again, doesn't it look small compared to how I remember it? There were stairwells. This was a stairwell right here. We've got something down here that maybe was the anchor of the stairs that used to go up there. But they would go up and then come around on themselves, go up again. And above here was the IT room, or at least, again, everything I say is going to be couched with the phrase "when I was here." So we'll assume that from now on rather than keep saying it. But yeah, again, the staff room was up here and the IT room, and one of our old form rooms was up here as well. I think it was the form room that we had in what would it have been? I think the third year. I think it was the first year we were in the upper school for our form. So I think it was up then. It was the one next door to the staff room and the old IT room. So that would have been that way. And then if we keep on walking down the walkway here, everything was on the left on this walkway. There wasn't anything on the right, except a small toilet and maybe a couple of cupboards, but you can't really make out where they were anymore because of the rubble again. As we walk down here, on the left, I think these rooms were all used for English classes, and they certainly were when I was here. I'll try and stop saying that because I'm sure it's getting boring. So we've got a big room here. A major memory for me being here was doing English with Mr. Melville, who I'm sure a lot of you remember. Great teacher, lovely guy, and I've seen him since quite recently, and he maintains being a lovely guy. But I really liked him as a teacher. He was young, compared to a lot of the older teachers. He was quite relatable, and he was funny. Me and Stu, my mate Stuart Furley, who I'm still friends with now. In fact, he was my best man at my wedding. We really liked him. We thought we used to enjoy talking to him and found him very funny. So in fact, if we can trace, so this looks like two rooms here, and I think if we look back, so right here, coming out to the other side of the building, we can see that there's some flagstones there. So that actually would have been one of the entrances, wouldn't it? Because that's where the doors would have been along here. So this would have been a corridor, and this would have been where another set of stairs were. Again, we can see where the anchors probably were for those stairs. So, which means, if we go back along here, and we walk along the old the old corridor, it brings us to here, which this would have been Mr. Melville's old room, pretty sure. And it was a large room. There was a library area back here, and then the classroom was all around us, and then his desk would have been around about here, right at the front with the blackboard and so on. So this is that. This is really wild to walk around it again. I know it's not here, but I'm visualising it in my own head, and it's obviously the first time I've been back in this space since 1994. So it's quite cool, really. So yeah, that's the old English room there. So if we come back out into the corridor, dead opposite this room, there was a bit of a space where you'd gather, waiting to go into the room. And then if we go a bit further down, we can see that the land drops off a bit, and that's because there was a set of stairs here, or a set of steps. Not many, probably about 7 or 8, but we would go down here, and then immediately to the right, and this is a bit that everyone I bet remembers, Right down there, that's where the old corridor was that led into the... So this area here was all red brick. Down there, it took you to a newer area of the school that was sort of prefab concrete built, which I guess would have been done maybe in the 60s, maybe 70s, I'm not sure when, but it took you down there. So we'll head down there in a second, but we'll just persevere down to the end of here. So we go down the steps that were here, and then we look on our left, and it looks like we've got another set of... Oh yeah, here we are, another entrance. Some more flagstones here, and another what would have been a set of stairs going up. Now, I think above here would have been the room where we did French in the first 2 years, 89 and 90, and we had a lady called Mrs. Messant who did that, who I've since learned was actually French. I never knew that at the time, even though when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's really obvious when I think about it now. So if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, I believe her name would have been Mrs. Messant. And I don't know what became of her, because she left in I think 91 or 92, and I really liked her as a teacher. I was never very good, or at least I never felt like I was very good at learning different language. But in the feedback that she gave my mum at her parents' evening, she said that I was a natural, and it never occurred to me that I was any good at it. But she was very adamant that I was. But unfortunately she left, and we had a replacement teacher who just didn't inspire the same way, as is the case with a lot of teachers, isn't it? You know, you get your teachers that really, really inspire you, and then some that unfortunately don't. And I dropped off, and as soon as I could drop it, I dropped it and didn't take it anymore. So that maybe feels like a bit of an opportunity lost. If I was, if I was so good, I can remember a bit of, a tiny bit of French, like, where is the beach, and that kind of thing. But apart from that, no, it's all gone. So yeah, anyway, that was on the floor above, which of course there's no way of sort of telling exactly where that was, apart from above where we are now. So as we walk down here, we've got another room, and let me see, where are we? I can't see the divide easily, but down here with the home economics room, so the two kitchen areas. We'll try and work backwards, because we had home economics down here. I remember doing that with I think it was Mrs. Annesley that we had for home economics. So we weren't in this right hand room very much. We were more often in this left hand room, and we can still see, of course, the footprint of where that would have been all along here. And if we trace it back, so they knocked the wall through while I was here, and this is where you can see that it was knocked through here. Look, so this walked straight through. So this is the home economics area, and then if you walk through here, this led you straight through into what was the textiles room. We had Mrs. Meikle for textiles in here. You can see here as well, there's a footprint of a wall here. I think this was the store cupboard. So you'd sort of go in through this way, and then you get all your bits of felt and whatever to do your project. But yeah, we have Mrs. Meikle, and the interesting thing about Mrs. Meikle is that she's not famous exactly, but she is internet searchable. If you Google her name, if you Google the name Mrs. Meikle Gedling Comprehensive, I think her name was spelt Meikle. You'll find a news article about her in that she sued the school for unlawful discrimination, and I never knew this at the time, but apparently she was blind in one eye, and I think, just trying to recall it, I think she was also hard of hearing as well, but I can't be sure about that. But anyway, she successfully sued the school for discrimination, for not accommodating the disability, which was quite interesting, because the names that are used in the article are familiar. Because it was a sort of thing that happened, I think, not long after we left. So a bit of scandal there. But no, if we trace it back, so actually from here, this would have been another room, another English room. So we've got the stairs here. So maybe it was here. Now, when during my time here, I had English in this room. For a good year, and it was with another teacher called Mrs. Garrer, and sadly Mrs. Garrer passed away not too long ago. I think sometime last year she passed away, and I think it was her son posted it on the Friends of Gedling School Facebook page. And I remember her. She was very witty. She was quite quite biting as well in her wit. I think I used to annoy her quite a bit because I was an annoying kid at school. And we had to do this. She had us do an assignment once where we had to imagine ourselves as an animal and sort of write a story based on the point of view of that animal. And I couldn't think of what I would be because everyone was trying to think of what's the animal version of me. And I asked her. I said, "Miss, what animal do you think I would be? What suits me the most?" I was thinking something cool like giraffe or elephant or lion. What did she say? I think, Ian, you're a weasel. Which was, just a flat out insult, wasn't it? But also it was an answer to the question, so, you can't really hold it against her. But, that was funny. I set her up for the joke and, she couldn't resist it, so, fair play to her. But yeah, it's sad to learn that she passed away, because I did like her as a teacher. I guess, looking back, 30, what would it be, 2022 now, 1989, 33 years ago, we're talking 33, 35, 37 years ago, that these guys were teaching us. So, if they were in their 30s and 40s at the time, then I guess that, time catches up with us all, doesn't it? So let's carry on anyway. We'll come around here. We'll head back into what would have been the corridor, which I think is about here, and that's where the steps were, that ramp there. And then we'll take a left, just here, and we'll head down what used to be the old corridor. Now we can't head straight, because all the rubble is now forming the landscape rather than how it used to look. I'll try and pick out the route. I can see it. Okay, so yeah, I think I see where we are. So there was an old building, wasn't there? An old sort of science building. That you had to walk up to get to, which was separate from everything else. And I think that's what this is here. Yeah, I think it is, because it did overlook the old tennis court thing over there. So let's just head down there and have a look. So this would have been. Let's just go down really quickly. Let's have a quick look around, see if I can get my bearings, because it's quite tricky to work out where everything was now, because A, the landscape has changed so much, and B, because of all the rubble, and B, it's all got completely wild. So it's obscuring a lot of the old views and so on. So I think, okay, yeah, I see where we are. So that was the old school hall there, the old assembly hall. So from here, that's the big tree, that's the landmark, isn't it? So from here, this would have been that big concrete bank that went down to the second part of upper school. And so yeah, where we are now, I think this would have been the old science block. So we used to do physics in here, not in this right hand room, but in the left hand one that we can't see, or is it just divided? I don't know, I can't really tell. It looks like this is the pathway anyway, and then maybe these are the rooms here. There's nothing really on the ground to sort of hint at where the doors would have been, which is a shame. But anyway, this is the actual footprint of it. So yeah, we used to have physics with Mr. Wood in one of these rooms. Physics was never my bag. Science generally wasn't really my bag. I got 2 D's in it, which again was more than I thought I'd get. But on this corner here, I think this is where the old tuck shop used to be. It closed while we were here, but you used to be able to buy your crisps and sweets and whatever from this little corner, and you used to come up from down that way, walk up over here. Yeah, I'd actually forgotten about that, because it's really hard to, without being able to see that walkway, it's hard to sort of place where it was. Just go over here for a second and see. It's all tarmac now, isn't it? No, is that it? I think that's it, isn't it? That's it. Because that looks like the walkway to it up there. Yeah, it is, that's right. So this... no, okay, I've got my bearings again. So that area of tarmac there, that was the science block, because that's the walkway where that yellow handrail is. We'll take a walk down there in just a second. So what this was an area off that big corridor, wasn't it? So let me see. So from up here we had when we went down the old corridor, there was an area, wasn't there, just left of the corridor, which is where we are now, and that would have been the old school nurse's office. So I think that's what this was. So if we go this way, it was another textiles room, I think, on this corner, which we never really went in much. But somewhere here was the nurse's office. I remember that being quite a small room, so maybe it's this bit here. Which means, it's a story I still tell now about having a needle phobia when I was a kid. When we had to have our TB injections, it took 2 nurses to hold me in place while the third one... one nurse to hold me in place while the second one gave me the jab because I was so scared of needles at the time. So that would have been right on this spot here. So that's a bit of a flashback, isn't it? Yeah, back to a traumatic memory. Although not so traumatic. I feel okay about needles now. So that's that area. So if we move over this way a little and we walk down here, right, this is the corridor now. So now we're going past, I think this turned into a computer room actually on the left, years after I left. But when I was here, it was a textiles room, or just a room for general lessons, because it didn't really have anything in particular inside of it. Okay, and then so down the walking down the corridor some more. This was the year room when we were in the 5th year. This sort of area on the right, on the left, and then it was divided, and then there was another area here. But there's nothing in these rooms, so they were never really used for lessons. It was just an area. And then this is where, obviously, this is where the corridor stops, because this is where it would have been, I guess, propped up onto the building that's no longer here on the left. Because it was joined onto the science block down here, which is of course all gone now. So that's about as far as we can trace it back there. But if we carry on heading down, should we go down this way? No, I'll tell you what. Let's go back round this way, because it'll take us down an area that's quite difficult to navigate now. And we can see over there, there's the old, I think, netball court over there, and I think what was netball and tennis over there as well. It's got someone's definitely been in there, haven't they? Gotten the gates off, but yeah. But yeah, let's head back. Let's head back down this way. So we're just sort of cutting up through an area that would have been a building before, because actually somewhere around here, the doors into the main school would have been near this tree. But we'll just retrace our steps around this way, and we'll go down through here. So we'll go down this way, we'll go to lower school, and then we'll turn back on ourselves and come up around the old sports halls and finish off sort of coming up where we came from. There's loads of rubble here, of course there is, because there's loads of buildings that have been demolished. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pieces of brick from the site, from lower school and from upper school, just as some souvenirs, really. Again, just because I'm a nostalgic old sod, and I want to create some sort of nothing grand or anything, but just something to, something to remember the old place by. Anyway, so we've come down into what used to be, so I think exactly where I'm stood now would have been a maths room, and there's a room here, there was an IT room there, science rooms over that way. But what I want us to look at is we can see this retaining wall here. So all along here, you can't see now where this footprint ends, but along here was that steep bank, that concrete bank that I mentioned earlier. And we used to hang around outside there after lunch. So I spent many hours down this particular bit. But this is something I'm sure we'll all remember. So if we head round here, that's the old retaining wall. This takes us round to a walkway that will go back up on the way back. But this, look how overgrown this is now. You can barely even see up there. but that's the old route down from the sports halls down onto the field. So you'd head down and then you'd go that way, which is completely grown over now. The way that I can tell it's that is because when I was walking around here a minute ago, before I started filming, you can still feel under your feet that one side of that path is concrete and the other side is rubber, which of course was installed if you were wearing studs to play football or rugby, so you didn't trash your studs as you went back up into the changing room area. So the rubber matting is still down there, which was the giveaway, because otherwise I was thinking, I can't even tell where this is, look, it's so overgrown. But yeah, we'll go back up that way when we're finished down here. So where we've just come down to, like I say, this is the lower part of Upper School. So the corner of the building that we're in now, when I used to be in this room, this is what we used as a maths room, and we used to do IT in here as well. For some reason, at that point we were able to do IT lessons without any computers. Figure that one out. But you know, there's the early 90s for you. So we'd have Mr. Hope for IT and for some maths lessons. And the thing I remember about Mr. Hope, two things. One, epic beard. And the second is that no matter what time of the day it was, whenever you used to pass in and say hello to him in the corridor, he'd always say, "Good morning!" And of course, when it's the afternoon, kids find that hilarious. Because, oh my God, it's not even the afternoon. What's he saying it's afternoon for? Oh, he's mad. Oh, look, his beard. You know, all that kind of nonsense. But, you know, he was fine. I think I've got his, I've got some school reports with his comments about me on them. I don't think he ever heard me talking about his beard, but then who knows, I wasn't exactly subtle when I was a kid. So yeah, that was this room anyway. But then if we go over this way, this was a ground floor and first floor building as well. So what we have here now, this was the old maths room that I was in, and like I say, you can't tell exactly where the boundary is for the building, but it looks very much to me like you would have come in. Let's see if there's anything on the floor. Can't really see where the doors were. Somewhere around here. Yeah, I think they were right around this area. So you'd walk. In fact, I think that's a giveaway, isn't it? You can see the edge of the room there. So this was the area you'd walk through. That was the sort of staff area, little area there. So you walk through here, and then on your left, that was that room. That was a maths room. Yeah, actually, that looks like where the door was, doesn't it? Just there. So yeah, going into here, this was the maths room that. As I mentioned before, when we were sorted into groups by ability, I was sorted into the lowest maths group because I just messed around for the first few years I was at school, at secondary school. And that teacher was Mr. Falconbridge in that group. And the first lesson we ever had with him in the lowest group was, "Now children, this is how you use a ruler. You measure from the point on the ruler where it says 0. You don't measure from the point of the ruler where the ruler actually starts. You measure from where it says 0. So at that point I thought, oh my God, I need to get out of here. I've done myself no favours by messing around this much. So I worked as hard as I could just to get moved up, and fortunately I did get moved up the next year into Miss West's maths class, which brings us through to here. So on the right hand side, there would have been we're getting into the sciencey area now, and we'll look at that in just a second. But on the left, that room was followed by this room, which I think starts here where these bricks are. Now this was an old form room. This was our 4th year form room with Mr. Cox, which is a hell of a name to have with some immature kids in your class, but it was COX, thankfully. But he was a lovely guy. He replaced our original form tutor, Miss Owen, I think in the 3rd year, because she left. Don't know why she left, but I was quite a difficult kid in the first couple of years, and I think I used to stress her out. I don't think to the point where she left, but I have always wondered about that, and it's one of those things that you look back on as an adult and think, wish I hadn't been quite so much of a, 4-letter word in those early years, but that's unfortunately what happened. So this would have been our form room right around here, and also I had maths in here with Miss West, like I said. And then we turn around and we get the old what would have been biology room, and then it's quite hard to see where it opens out, but it because so much of it is sort of rubble now, but Let's just retrace the steps and see. So this looks like the walkway. So I think around about here we would have transitioned into what was the year room back then. So on our right were the science rooms, and on this area here was the year room. And we had a school disco in here one year. Well, a couple of things of note happened in here. The first one was that the only time I fainted when I was at school was in this room. It was in the morning. It was a hot morning. Probably not as hot as it is today. I think it's about 26 degrees today. But I hadn't had any breakfast, and I come into school, and then we had an assembly where I was standing up, and it was really hot. Hadn't eaten anything. Blood sugar, plummeted, and bang, I was out. It was one of those moments where incredibly embarrassing to be at school and to pass out in front of literally the whole year. But actually, you know what? It was all right. It wasn't too bad, because when I came round, there was teachers around me asking if I was okay. No one was laughing. They might have laughed at the moment I dropped, but of course I didn't see or hear that. But no, it was all right. I kind of went home, got a free day off for it. Came back the next day, and it was quite nice. Some of the kids were asking me if I was all right after I passed out. I remember one of them was Ben Hayday. I think he was another kid that went to juniors and infants with as well. I remember him coming up to me and asking me if I was all right, which was nice of him. So yeah, there was that. And the other thing of note that happened in this year room was a school disco, where in that sort of typically pathetic way that when you're very young, you have your school crush, right? And I certainly had mine, and we ended up having a dance together, and it was the fabled last dance of the night as well. And because it was quite a big deal to me, I remember the time being 10:55 at night, and I remember the song being "Have You Seen Her" by MC Hammer. I think did that, didn't he? Barely heard it since. But there you go. That's the strong memory from this place, and it would have happened round about where I'm standing. So yeah, that was nice. First dance I'd ever had with a girl. Can you imagine? It was properly like the in-betweeners. I didn't know what I was doing, but there you go. It was a big deal. And then this then brings us into what would have been our old science room, roughly around here. Where we had science for the whole time in upper school, and it was Mrs. Berry that we had for science, and I had science with her all through school from the first year. Mr. Wood for physics, Mrs. Berry for science and biology. She's the one who did the dreaded sex education with us all, which I'm sure teachers absolutely love doing, to a bunch of kids who were going to laugh merely at the mention of a willy. And look at me now, I'm still laughing at it now, so I'm not grown up at all. But yeah, Mrs. Berry, she was great. I really liked her. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if she stayed or what she's doing now, but I really liked her. I think she liked me. But yeah, I've got some good memories of Mrs. Berry's classes. So that would have been around about here. And then we had another one in the corner here, didn't we? Another science room. Now in this room is always a bit grim from my memory, because I just remember it being full of jars of formaldehyde with sort of mice, preserved in it, and all that kind of thing. Didn't really like it at all. And there's some cages with mice in them as well. So yeah, wasn't really a fan of that kind of business. But that was this area here, and I think there was another one right behind it. So that's probably what this dividing line is for that room as well. And then so I've got my bearings again now. So this is the route around that building, and we can't get to it now because of all this rubble. But if we could, we'd go straight ahead here and then turn left, and then that's where the doors would have been to get into this building from this side. And I was hoping to be able to see that again, because we spent quite a few lunch times out here in that area. Me and Stuart and Andy Fowler and Andy Stubbs, and because we were all massive nerds, we used to love the Three Amigos movie with Steve Martin and Martin Short and Chevy Chase, and we knew all the songs by absolute heart, so we used to sit around there and sing them at the top of our lungs. Fantastic. Very fond memory of doing that, but of course it's all buried now, look, under all that rubble, so I can't really see where that was, because there was a wall that sort of went all the way around there to section it off, but buried now. So that's that. But if we walk around here, we'll see the old walkway, maybe, up to the old 2 science rooms that I mentioned a minute ago. Oh, the other thing to say before we just move along from here is that there was a floor above this base, and that's where we had our final form room for the 5th year. And there was the library up there as well, and the history rooms and geography. So, in fact, let me just try and remember where things were. So I think our old form room was directly above here. And this is, I mean, look how overgrown this is now. You can't really see because I'm too close to it, but this is the old walkway along the side of the building. Back then, in the early 90s, this was all clear. I mean, it was a bank that had bushes on it, but it was all clear. So there was a handrail that went down here, and you could see across the whole field from this level, but of course from the top level as well. And from the top level, I think above this part, that's where our old form room was, with Mr. Cox in the 5th year. But it's very hard to remember the layout of it all, of course, now, because it's all gone. But if we just wander back over here for a second, I want to mention this specifically. So for geography remains my worst subject to this day. But there's a lovely teacher called Mr. Davis, a lovely Welsh chap who used to take that lesson. But there's a few history teachers as well that were around here. Mr. Toft was one of them. Never had Mr. Toft as a teacher, but he was known as Tofty. And legend had it that he had a wooden leg. Who the hell knows if that was ever true, because that was a myth that was put about the place by Mr. Chambers, which I've bumped into Mr. Chambers in the past few months. Because it turns out he lives just around the corner from me now, and he looks great. He looks 20 years younger than he must be. Still fit and active. Still goes to the park. I've seen him running past me, going for a jog. He's fitter than I am, even now. I remember him always being a big sports enthusiast, because he used to take us up to the old squash club at the top of Arnold Lane, which is now the flats that they built up there. We used to do that was part of our PE lesson for a while, doing squash up there. But I wanted to mention Mr. Chambers specifically, because he was an absolutely fantastic teacher. I had a chat with him recently when I saw him, and he was teaching all the way up until recently. I think the pandemic is what made him retire, because he said he didn't enjoy doing the whole remote working for teaching. But the old room that we would have sat in for his lessons would have been directly above where I'm standing now. I used to love his lessons. We covered the history of medicine, First World War, American West, what else? A few other things, but those are the ones that stand out in the memory. Oh, history of medicine, I think I mentioned that one. So that was, I just wanted to mention him, because he's still around now. He's an absolutely great bloke. And the other thing that I absolutely loved is that when I spoke to him, he asked me if I remembered Mr. Toft, and I said, well, no, not really, because I never had him for any lessons, but they're still friends now, and they still meet up for a drink every now and then now. So that's lovely that there's friendships from teachers that have endured all this time as well. So that was right here. So we'll head down now to the to lower school, at least as it was called when I was here. It was called Lower School. Completely separate building. Again, concrete prefab like this one to the left. This is weird walking this way, because it looks so different. It looks so very different to how it did. It's not school anymore, is it? It's not that. It's just now a derelict wasteland. It's like it was never here. I mean, of course you can see that it was, but it looks so different. Like all of that nature that's taken over, it just makes it look so different. And I'm retracing the steps of myself from 30 years ago, and yet it doesn't really feel like it's the same place anymore. Weird. So we come over to here. Look. So this is where the walkway is. So that's the old lower school down there. This now is all completely overgrown, but you can see that is the route that would have taken us up to the old science rooms where we did physics with Mr. Wood. When again back in the 90s, there were hedges and stuff either side of the walkway, so it's no surprise that they've completely overgrown it and just taken over. But you can still feel that there's a concrete path down there underneath it all. And you could get up there if you wanted to, but I'm not going to, because it's very very narrow, and I'm only wearing shorts, so I don't want to get my legs stung all to hell. So this brings us to lower school. So right around here, in fact, right here, look, you can see where they were. That is where the steps were / are. That's the only step that remains. And again, the landscape's changed because of all the rubble. But let's follow the route. So we go down here. So back then we'd be walking down steps now, going down to lower school. And this would have been the corner of it right here. And then this is the outside route around it. So back, let me think. In the second year, we would have been in this corner room here as our form room, and that was with Miss Owen back then. And just in front of this corner room was the year room, where these lovely weeds are growing now. So that would have been the year room here. And then when we got through to the front, I think there used to be toilets and things around here, didn't there? So I think this was an old toilet area. Can't really see anything that gives that away, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure there was some toilets or a coat hanging area in the corner. And we come round now to the front or the rear, depending on your point of view, of the old lower school. Again, a key difference here versus the early 90s. There we go, look, that looks like it was a toilet, doesn't it? That looks like it's an outflow pipe right there. So yeah, there were toilets here. Anyway, so one of the key differences here was that this fence wasn't here back then. And none of this was, well, it was grown, there's bushes and stuff, but you used to be able to walk directly from lower school over here, directly down over here and down the bank onto the field. But of course that's all blocked off now. So that's a pretty different thing that's obviously been there for a while. And there was another one of those handrails down here, which I think they've removed and replaced with all this fence. So let's carry on going this way. That handrail, actually, it does remind me of when I was in the first year in 1989. Our year head of year was Mr. Lace, who I think had been here since the 60s. He was a proper old school, old timer of a teacher. And from what I can gather, not very well liked either by the students. He's very, very severe, very strict, no sort of sense of humour about him, kind of, that's what I mean, old school sort of teacher. And I remember on the handrail along here one day, it just showed up all of a sudden, because we all had Tipp-Ex back then. Someone had just Tipp-Ex onto the handrail, Lacey is bald, because he was, he had a comb over. But unfortunately, they spelt it B-O-L-D rather than B-A-L-D. So it was actually a compliment rather than a criticism. But there you go. Would have been a bit too much to hope for that to still be there. Tipp-Ex doesn't really age very well over 30 years, does it? But so it brings us to this area here. So this was the old entrance or one of the entrances into the lower school. In this little corner. The memory that I remember most about this little corner was waiting to get in after lunch one day and getting headbutted right on the nose by David Moody, who was another kid that I'd been to infants, juniors and secondary with. And I don't even know what prompted it. We weren't fighting, it's not like we had a bad relationship or anything. I think he was just messing about, and because he was I wasn't particularly tall back then, but I think he was always a little bit under average size, so I think he was just messing around, and he jumped up in the air, and I think he was pretending to headbutt me, but no, he connected proper. Gave me a headache for the rest of the day, that did. But just one of them silly things that happens with school. You get a few you get a few headbutts and accidental punches along the way, don't you? That would have been the old entrance there, and then obviously our old form room. And here, let me think, what would this have been? This was all connected, wasn't it? It all sort of flowed through. There weren't any hard walls that divided it off back then. So I think this area here would have been an old maths room that sort of fed right through from over here. It was a sort of a classroom right in the middle of everything, with a walkway, you know, like an entrance going straight through either way. Again, Miss West we had in this lesson, so I'm guessing that was in here roughly. And next to it would have been another science room. So this was 2 science rooms back to back now. One here, in fact that looks like an old pipe. Is that an old gas pipe for the old Bunsen burners? What is that? No, that's electrics, isn't it? But yeah, there you go. That's a bit of evidence of what was here. You can see all the old patterns on the floor, look, from all the tiles. But yeah, this was one science room, and then that would have fed through into the other science room, which would have been over here. Again, with Mrs. Berry, we had for science in the first 2 years when we were down here. And then above us, on the floor above, there was a library that had really, really weird squishy flooring. It was like really, really thick vinyl flooring that had, I'm guessing, you know, underlay beneath it, and it was really squishy. It was really weird. Never seen it before or since. But yeah, there's a library upstairs. So yeah, this whole thing here would have been the old science room, where I was introduced to science. I think this is where, in fact, we dissected that frog that time, and we looked at tadpoles under a microscope and so on. Used to sit on a table again with David Mear and Darren Hickman, and Andy Fowler and me. It was all 4 of us on the table. We used to have a great time back then. Not necessarily learning too much, but we used to have a great time. And I guess this is another toilet block, isn't it? You know, giving you a bit of a glimpse down into the old outflow pipe down there. I think this was, I don't know what that was as a room, not sure. Maybe that was a teacher's room or something. But as we work our way around the edge of the lower school here, this is the way I often used to get into the school grounds when I was here before. Used to, obviously I'd walk around the other way, you know, go back around the way I've just come, and then we'd wait in that sort of dark grey area to be let in. But over here, this would have been the in fact this was the area where that security guard caught me last time and stopped me going any further, because they hadn't finished demolishing it, and this corner here apparently had some asbestos in the walls, so they're waiting for the specialist removal of that. But looks like it's all gone now, isn't it? But yeah, if we go around to this corner here, we can see that that's the corner there. So let's just head up these stairs. Obviously these steps are still here. Old can of booze there. Again, all these fences blocking everything off. But from here, where we're looking right now, like dead ahead in the camera, that's where our first form room would have been with Miss Owen in 1989. And that's what I really wanted to see actually before the place was demolished, because it's one of those long ago memories that you remember meeting key people in your life back then. You know, the people that you were with for the next 5 years, and the people that you've been friends with for the last 30. But it sadly wasn't meant to be, so it lives on in the memory. And we'll just head through this way, because again, like I said, it's all been fenced off, but previously this didn't have any restrictions on it anywhere. You're just free to wander around it. Now this is the old car park. I'll just put my camera up there so you can see, but that's the old that concrete bed over there, that's the old power room over there, which I think supplied power to the lower school. That's the old playing field over here. That's wild now. I mean literally it's wild, it's all completely overgrown. We'll walk back through that on the way out. And this is the old car park. You can see the old markings on the ground still. You know, some of them are still there. Yeah, this is well, yeah. I mean, I used to walk into school this way most days. I used to get the bus from Carlton. That's what I used to do. I used to get the bus from Carlton. Lived on Cornhill Road, so I had to get the bus, get off at the top of West Dale Lane, walk down Lascelles Avenue, and then into school the back way, just through here. Did that every day for 5 years. But this car park obviously is a big part of that memory, because I'd have to go to and from, you know, every single day. But one of the real big things I remember about this car park is we went on 2 trips to France in the time that I was here, in the time that I was doing French. Oh yeah, we can get through this way. Look, one of them was a day trip, So we travelled, I think, overnight. We were mainly on the bus, I think, the whole time. It wasn't. It was a bit weird. We didn't really do much Francing, but yeah, we did the day trip, and then the second trip was 2 or 3 days. I can't remember exactly how long it was. See, look, there's the back entrance. Yeah, to get out, and then you've got the shops up there on the right hand side. Obviously, the concrete blocks here now and all chained up. Not that it matters, because one of the one of the fence posts over there has been sawn off. Oh, here we go. Look, there's another sign. All visitors must report to reception. This is a school playing field and is not for use by the general public. Unauthorised use, including the exercising of dogs, is forbidden. Section 40 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982. So here we go. Look, it's not a school playing field anymore, is it? I'm thinking that sign is now a little bit out of date. So we won't worry too much about that. But anyway, yeah, one of the things about those 2 trips to France is that this is the car park we left from, you know, with the coach, and we had to leave at night. So it all felt really surreal, because I think we had to meet up here at about 10 at night in order so that we could drive down to Dover, get the ferry over, you know, and arrive in France the next day with a whole day to be able to do stuff. I'm walking over this direction because this is the sort of image I have in my head of how it looked back then, which is right over there. That's where the coach was. That's where it was parked, and all the little buddies were all, you know, sticking our bags underneath, and then getting in the coach. Everyone's trying to rush to the back because that's where all the cool kids sit, right? And that's a really fond memory, that is, of going to France. We had a great time there for a few days. Went to Aqualude, which was it's a Le Touquet in France. So we went to the swimming pool there, which is called Aqualude, and it's still there as well. You can Google it; it's still there, unlike this place. So yeah, that's the car park. I just noticed over here, I think these are quite new, or well, not new, but recent. My time parking. No idea what that is. My time parking only, bringing people together. Yeah, and like I said a minute ago, we walked around here, edge of the car park. That brings us to that sort of generator room, you know, power room over here. That fence was never here in the past, like I said. Went straight through onto the field, but we can get out that way. In fact, if you zoom in right over there, you can see the fence panel that's dislodged. That's how I got in. Someone's been here way before me and taken care of that. But I'm glad they did, because this has been really nice just to have a wander around and reminisce. You know, it's been completely self-indulgent, of course. I mean, I'm sure it's not that interesting to most people, but it felt like it was something that I needed to do just to be able to let it go. You know, it's a way of letting go of the past, just to revisit what was. You know, see how it is, and then be able to say, okay, let's move on. Because you know, everything changes, right? You know, that's the only thing. That's the only constant, isn't it? Everything changes, and it's fine to have memories, but everything changes. You know, everything does pass, but we still have the memories of what we did here and what happened here. We've still got the memories, and that's the key thing, isn't it? You know, these things live in our heads now. The school isn't here anymore, but it is still very much alive in the memories of those who went here and those who remember it. And that's why I wanted to come, because like I said, I'm prone to nostalgia, a bit of a soppy old git. But you know, so much of my life was spent here. You know, 5 years. Well, 5 years in the great scheme of things isn't that much, but it's a big deal at the time, isn't it? So there's a big part of my life that was spent here, and a big part of all of our lives that was spent here. And it only feels right just to say goodbye that one last time, which is what we're doing. So what we'll do, we'll head back up. Into the area we started. Like I said, I'm going to take a few souvenirs. What I did already before I started filming was I got these stones here from all that big pile of stuff over there, just to take away as souvenirs, and make a sort of little display of some kind with. But I'm going to do that with the upper school as well. I haven't done that yet, because the difference is, of course, that down here it was mostly made of like I said, concrete prefab panels, So I've got some bits of those over there, and I'll get some red brick pieces from upper school when I've finished. But let's head back up. So let's see if we can retrace it. So we're still in the building. We're still in what was the building right now. So let's go back out to the pathway. So this is the pathway here, and we'll head back up. So these were the steps, like we said a minute ago. And back up here to the top of the steps. And in fact, an enduring memory of this place, when we had maths in one of those rooms down there, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't one of our regular teachers. It wasn't Miss West, if you're watching. You'll be glad it wasn't. But me and a student here, Lee Manuel, who, again, someone else I went to infants, primary and secondary with. He, I think his surname earlier on was Lee Helliwell, but he changed it to Manuel later on. But one of the teachers asked us to go up to the upper school and get her a cup of tea, so we did. And at the time, me and him were thick as thieves, so we went and got it, came back down here, and unfortunately, absolutely laughing our heads off, we took it in turns to do a little bit of spit in the cup of tea, which, you know, again, one of those memories when you look back at it, you think, oh my god, what idiots we were. But, you know, there we go, that's what we did, and that all happened just along here. I've not seen him for a while. We were friends on Facebook for a bit. I've not seen him for a long time, but I think he's moved away from Nottingham. Hope he's still okay. If you're watching this, hope you're okay. Got some good memories of you and I at Priory and here all those years ago. So yeah, let's retrace our steps over here. Now we're going to go back up the way I mentioned a minute ago. It's been almost completely grown over. So this is the old route that took us down from the changing rooms down to the field, and you'll see how overgrown it is. We go this way, through here, and so I can only guess because I can't see for sure, but it looks like we would have headed down that way. You can just about make out there's a bit of fencing there that blocks the way. If we go up here, we'll see we have to move some of this overgrown business out of the way. So there we go. I'll make our way through here, and we're on the path. Now it diverts off here to take us down to that lower part of upper school. But if we carry on up here, again, I mean, who'd recognise this now? It's completely overgrown. You wouldn't know what this was if you just dropped here. But as we come through, the spiders made an entire web in this gap since I last walked through here. Aren't they industrious little buggers? Sorry to destroy it, by the way, but you know, I'm trying to get through. Here we go. So we got up here, and this is where we can see it clearly divides. Look, and this is where the rubber is. So just look down here. Look, you can see the rubber matting or whatever it is still there from all those years ago. That's how I knew where it was. So maybe it's this way, because there's a pathway down here. Maybe this is where we diverted off to get onto the field. Down here, who knows? It's all completely overgrown. Fair guess that's where it was. Oh no, actually no, they built another entrance to the old sports hall, didn't they? So that might have been that. That's probably the old entrance to the sports hall. Because that's where the sports hall was, just there. So yeah, okay, that's probably what that was. Again, that was done after I left, so I've just seen that in some photos, that there was a different entrance. So if we head up here, get out, it's quite thorny. Again, wearing shorts, ow. Okay, so we make our way up to the top. Again, rubber matting still here, look. And then here we are. So from here we'd have walked along. So this is the old gymnasium, isn't it, with the sprung floor where you'd have your gymnastics, and the ropes were there as well, and the vaulting horses and all that kind of thing, and the crash mats. That was another thing, wasn't it, in the assembly hall, is that they had those gigantic trampolines in there. They were brilliant. Yeah. yeah, so anyway, from here, somewhere around here there used to be a staircase that I think they got rid of when they built that alternative entrance down there. But this was the old sports hall. Again, the bit of it that you can see is a fraction of the old footprint because of all the rubble that's been bulldozed around it. But here we are. So I'm guessing this looks to me like it's probably half of the width of the actual old hall. Yeah, we can see it goes back a bit further here. But yeah, we used to play. What we used to play in here? All sorts. Squash we used to do in here. Cricket. They had the cricket nets that they pull out. There was a basketball hoops and volleyball. This is the place where the only sport I've ever really been any good at, volleyball. This was the place where it happened. It's one of my regrets actually. I wished I'd taken it up straight away after school because I was pretty good at it. And it was, I forget the name of the PE teacher. I remember Mrs. Hallam as a PE teacher. I think she passed away a couple of years ago. I don't remember the name of the other teacher though that taught us for that. We had Mr. Davison as a PE teacher, and Mr. Evans as well. But I can't remember the name of the other lady who used to take us for volleyball, which is a shame. But yeah, God, Mr. Davison, wow. What a personality he was. I think he boxed my ears once because I wasn't paying attention in rugby. That was the thing. On that big old field over there, that's where we used to play rugby. Or I should say that's where the boys who could play rugby played rugby, because I couldn't play it. Never understood it. Never understood. What are you doing? You passed it back. I don't know. What does that mean? No one ever really told me about what passing back meant. So, you know, I was rubbish. But yeah, Mr. Davison took us to that, and he was really annoyed at me. So I think he gave me a good telling off and boxed my ears. So as we go along here, this is sort of getting us back to where we started, really. Old sports hall here. And let me think, where are we? Yeah, so if we carried on here, this would have had a bit of a canopy over it, or a roof over it before. And yeah, this is it. It brings us into the old music room. So this would have been the entrance to the music room here. And we go in through here, don't we? And then, again, when I was here in the early 90s, there was a massive load of lockers all along this row here. And then we turn around, maybe around about here. And then to the left, there was a smaller room, which I'm guessing might be this bit just here, where I tried and spectacularly failed to learn how to play the cornet, which is like a small trumpet, I think. Rubbish I was, absolute rubbish. Couldn't read music, and yet I was expected to read music without being taught how to read music, so that died a death pretty quickly. And then we come through into this next bit. Now, again, in the early 90s, this was like an exercise area, so they had a big multi-gym in here that I used a few times. First time I ever worked out was in here. I remember using the leg press and the what's it called? The leg extension for doing exercising your quadriceps. Couldn't walk for 3 days after that because I did far too much, being a silly little boy. Yeah, and that was on this spot, so that was lovely. And then if we went through from there to here, this is the old music room. That again, in the early 90s, it was Mr. Pilgrim who used to be the music teacher back then. There's a storeroom over there where all the blue plastic xylophone boxes were kept that we used to get wheeled out every session to play. That was the extent of the music, playing xylophones and doing a bit of singing. And yeah, I think his piano was around about here. His office would have been over here, wouldn't it? I suppose if this was the classroom that we're standing in now, then this area here would have likely been his office. Yeah, just about here. So yeah, this is one of the times where there was some sort of music presentation in the evening to parents, and I was roped into doing the role of narrator. So I had to stand like about here and read out the narration to the audience. First ever speaking to a crowd that I ever did. I was terrified. Hopefully a bit better now, but I was also late as well because I had to get the bus, like I said earlier, from Carlton down to here in the evening, and I didn't know what time it was due. Got the wrong bus, dropped me off in Carlton Square, had to run all the way from Carlton Square to get here on time. So yeah, stressful. So let's head back out, just because this is helping me keep my bearings. If I walk out the same way that I remember where the entrance was, it helps me just stay on track with where things were. So we go along here. So now we're in the car park area, aren't we? This was an area for teachers to park. So on the left here would have been the art and design section or block. So we would have walked in. Where would we have walked in? Over here, maybe. Yeah, that looks like a door, doesn't it? Oh, not door, but it looks like there might have been a door just about there. So we go in through here. There'd have been a set of stairs over here that took us up to the next floor, and then there was a floor above that as well. So this was like the lower ground floor. Then there was a ground floor there, just up there, and then there was another floor above that as well. We'll get to that in just a second. So here, this was like the woodwork and metalwork area, wasn't it? All of the sort of industrial machinery was around here, I remember. So we'd have all of this area here with workbenches and so on. Over here, I think this is one of the offices for one of the technicians. I think Mr. Bonser was one of those technicians while I was here. That's his office. Got some crumbling little brickwork there. Yeah, that would have been that whole area. And then over here, this was the open plan CDT area. This is where they had the bandsaw and all that business, all that stuff was here. But again, you can't quite see where the footprint ends because of all the rubble. But yeah, that was all here. And then above it was the art rooms. So that was where Mrs. Hindle. She was our ceramics teacher. Who else was there? Mr. Kujavinsky, I think, was the CDT teacher when we were down here. Mr. French, he did the technical drawing or graphics as we called it back then. Who else? Mr. Pickup as well. I saw Mr. Pickup maybe about 10 years ago and caught up with him. He's still doing all right. I reminded him of our first ever meeting. He started when I think a couple of years after I started here, and I needed a chair from another room because there weren't enough left in the room that we were in. So I just sort of ran along, went into his room, disturbing his lesson, admittedly. And I said, "Sorry, sir, can I just nick one of these chairs because we haven't got enough in our room." First time I'd ever met the guy, and he came over. It was quite funny in hindsight. It was quite intimidating at the time, but he didn't say a word. He just locked eyes with me and walked over to me, and he said, "You can take that chair, but you and I will cross swords again," which is a hell of a thing to say, isn't it? It's quite dramatic. It's quite impressive, really. So I don't know if I made a mortal enemy at that point, but he was fine when I saw him a few years back. He didn't remember it, but I did, because that's the kind of thing you remember, isn't it, as a child? But no, he's a nice guy. So yeah, we'll come over. So this is just sort of tracing the edge of the car park now. You can see some of the sort of paint markings that are still there as well. So here, of course, this is in the corner, wouldn't it, of the old sports hall. So this is the shot. When I told you earlier that I got some photos from the demolition team, or the project lead, I think he was stood around about here, and he showed me a photo of the sports hall about to be demolished and then in progress. So that was from right here. So that's the old sports hall right there. So if we go, we'll go back this way. And then we'll hook left again just to look at the old dining hall and snack bar. So yeah, this is the old sports hall here. And if we go up a bit further, again, it's hard to tell exactly where. What we can see on the ground is, I think the old entrance to get into the changing rooms would have been about here, which is now on this sort of hill of rubble. But if we went that way, what we would have is boys' changing rooms on the left, which is where I am now. There was a little toilet to the right here, and then what we can see, and this is a dead giveaway, is that this is where the old shower block was. It's a dead giveaway because we can see the old water traps from where the showers were. So they're all still there. And yeah, like I say, if we walked along further here, again, if we were walking over here, this would have been the actual corridor, and it leads us into where do the showers finish? Showers look like they finished around about here. And then what we would have had is the changing area, which had those metal frames that we'd all sort of swing through. Those who remember know what I'm talking about. You could swing through them all and get told off if the teachers caught you doing it. And then of course to the other side, that's where the girls' side was. And we can see all the shower traps as well. And actually this bit here, would have been the office, wouldn't it, for the teacher? Because they had a shower of their own installed, which is what this cemented over thing here looks like it would have been, the trap for that. So this is the old room where the teachers would sit. This area with the red on the ground, I think that's the changing area. And then that area over there, that's the shower. And my God, that shower block looks tiny. Again, it's going back to that thing, isn't it, that everything looks smaller when you're an adult. I remember the shower block being massive, but of course, no, it wasn't. It was quite small. And here's the entrance to it, just there, look. You see, where the brick, where that black bit is down there. And the girls' showers here, girls' changing rooms, and then another little room for the teacher on the end there. And again, we'll remember that going through from the shower room, from the changing rooms, we used to go straight through here, and then there was a trophy cabinet right at the end of this corridor here, and then we could go this way, I think. Yep, we'd go this way through here, and then this would take us into the sports hall, which is where we are now. And then that's the assembly room again with the trampolines in it. So this is the old sports hall. Like I say, it had a wooden sprung floor, had ropes that you could pull out from the sides of the room. Yeah, had a lot of good fun in here, years and years ago. But yeah, that's the old sports hall. So from here, we'll cut through the girls' changing rooms, which feels a bit wrong, seeing as we were never allowed in here. And I said, look, you can see where the old benches were installed in the ground. Look, so they were installed there, tubular steel, and they went up, looped over, came back down again, and then you could go through them like Tarzan. You could swing through them. So the girls had them in their room as well. That's nice to see. You know, it's seeing things like that that make you realise, or make you, that, you know, confirm to you that you didn't make all this stuff up. You know, this stuff actually did happen. It is true. It was here. It's not just my imagination. I don't think we can see it from the boys' side though. Maybe it's these little things here. But yeah, there we go. Of course, these ones along the edge, there was benches along the edge as well, weren't there? So that's what that would have been. So yeah, back out. So through the showers, always avoided the showers when I was a kid because, you know, you're going through puberty, you're going through changes. Some boys go through changes much quicker than others. You get really embarrassed about your body. So what do? You avoid having a shower because you don't want to get attention. So yeah, you spend the rest of the day at school quite sweaty and smelly because you'd avoid having a shower afterwards. And like I say, then this is the toilet area. That's an old toilet there, obviously, with the pipe going down. And then it brings us back out again through here. So then let's take ourselves up this way. Now this brings us up to the old, now this was the ceramics room, and then next to that we've got the old dining hall and snack bar. So I'll try and, best as I can, I'll try and just map out where those were. So it looks like this is the entrance, doesn't it? So if we go in this way, so you'd be waiting hours here, well not hours because you had an hour for your lunch, but you'd be waiting here, queuing up in this hallway to get called through into the dining room. But on the left, I think there was a little toilet, first of all. Maybe that's what we're actually walking on now. I think the entrance is a little bit further up this way. So let's say the entrance was here, I think. So yeah, we'd wait in line here, and then toilet there. I think another toilet here. And then as we went through here, yeah, this is it. We would get to the end here. And then the room in front of us, that was where we did technical drawing, or graphics as it was called back then. So we'd walk straight through here, and then there was a corridor, which we can see going ahead of us. So this room here was where you'd eat your packed lunch, but it was also the graphics room. So let's just take a look, if we go and stand it, because I remember looking at it from this angle, because this is where I used to sit. Yeah, so that's, yeah, that matches up again. So the corridor was there, and then we come out of here and go this way, and then right here you can see the threshold there. This was the ceramics room with Mrs. Hindle. So I did ceramics for my GCSE. I think I got a C in that. So thinking about it, actually, so what I thought was toilets actually wasn't, was it? So the toilets would have been under that rubble, and the corridor would have been a bit further. This room was the kiln room, so this is where you'd have all your ceramic stuff baked. So you sort of walk in here, the Kindle was right here, absolutely roasting hot. And then if we go back out and through this way, this was a little storage area, I think, where all the tools and stuff were kept. And then this was the room, the ceramics room. So we had 2 tables for wedging out your clay at either end, and we did our GCSEs in this room for ceramics. And I guess we'd have been sat maybe around about this point here. I remember sitting opposite Matthew Bartlett and Andrew Stubbs doing that. I think Lee Newton was in there as well, Mark Wells. Yeah, I used to really enjoy ceramics. I still got all my pieces as well. They're in a box in the loft, but I still got them. Then we put them on the shelf. So all the windows were here. We put them all on the shelf here to dry prior to getting ovened or baked in the kiln. So yeah, there we go. That's the old ceramics room. I'm pretty sure it changed from being a ceramics room in later years though to something else, because I think maybe after Mrs. Hindle left, I don't think they continued doing ceramics as an option. But yeah, it was good while it lasted. So then we come up, I guess, to what would have been. Now there's a hint. There's some old tiles that haven't been removed. Okay. So I think, if I can remember correctly. Yeah, so this was the old snack bar in here. So it was in front of the dining room. So there's an entrance to the snack bar from the edge, from this side. So this would have been here. From maybe around about there. So you'd walk into the snack bar, these sell burgers and hot dogs and all that kind of business, flapjacks and stuff. You'd walk in here, sit down somewhere in here. Remember, this is the place I came on my first day at school here. Sat in the snack bar on my own, eating a hot dog, because I hadn't made any friends yet. Yeah. But then we'd be able to walk straight through. There was a gap from here that took you straight through into the dining hall. So that's where we are now. So I think, if I can remember right, we'd come up the steps, which I'm assuming were here, and there was a big, huge old radiator thing on the wall just to the right, and then we make our way into, so you put your bags and your coats in this area here, and you walk through into the dining hall, went stretched out that way, and a bit that way as well, and this is where you'd queue up and get your lunch. I guess this is where the din ladies used to serve us. So move along here, get served, and then come round about here, you pay, and you disperse into the room, go and sit down and eat your dinner. And then all this area here, obviously never went in this bit, because this was the kitchen. We can see there's tiling on the floor. I think these were storerooms, or maybe this was the old hatch actually, where we'd have to put our crockery when we'd finished eating. I think that was around this area. Yeah, it looks tiny, doesn't it? Again, it's that thing. It looks small now. but of course back then it was plenty big enough. Yeah, and it sort of fed around into this sort of corner here. So yeah, that's the kitchens and snack bar and dining hall. It's absolutely crazy how different it all looks. I know it looks different because the buildings aren't here anymore, but it looks, it just doesn't look like school anymore, which is to be expected because it really isn't. So that brings us back to the start. So from that car park down there, we come up this ramp. We can see that there were some parking spaces here as well. Again, if we went down there, that takes us to the reception. But we walk back up here, and it takes us back out to the main entrance. So, what time are we at? 1 hour and 35 minutes. Oh dear, how boring for people. This is like the duration of a movie. So, I guess we can finish there. So what I'm going to do before I finish, or before I leave, is I'm going to go over here to the upper school, and I'm going to get some pieces of brick, like I said, just so I've got some mementos of the old place, and try and make a little sort of hanging display. Get one of those sort of deep frames, and put a few of the pieces of rubble in, and just do a bit of a display. So I'll do that next. But I guess for now, that's it, isn't it? It's time to say goodbye to this old place. And like I was saying a minute ago when we were down in lower school, it's important. This is an important place in my childhood, in my sort of life story. So I wanted to come back and just say goodbye, which it feels like this has been a good opportunity to do. Albeit completely overgrown, bits of it impassable, bits of it completely unrecognisable from how it was. But I'm glad I did it, because it feels like now I can let it go and say, let's move on to the next phase. We'll come and have a look again when whatever gets built on here gets built, and we'll see if we can, see where everything used to be again. The trees will still be here because they've got protection orders. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So thanks for watching. If this has been of any interest at all, then I'm really glad. And again, I think local history-wise, it was important to just give it a last walkthrough, because I couldn't do it while the building was still here, which is sad. But I can do it now, so it feels good to have done it. Thanks for listening, because I know I've just talked about all of my memories, because they're the only ones I've got, of course. But I hope it was interesting. And let's keep the place alive in our minds until the next phase. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.